Welcome to the Service Management Show from the team at Eficode. I'm Gary Blower, the IT Service Management Practice Lead for Eficode in the UK and US. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about the concept of work management. I'm joined by my guest, Sierra Dasso from Atlassian, who I'll let introduce themselves.
Yeah. Hey, Gary. Thanks for having me. My name's Sierra, and I lead work management for EMEA and APAC. Excited to hear that you guys are doing this effort and contributing some insights into how our customers are using our work management tools.
Cool. No problem at all. Right. So you've heard the word work management used twice already. And what I want to set out at the beginning really is to sort of allow our viewers and listeners to really understand, what do we mean by work management?
Yeah, Gary, I 100% agree with you. I even think that my title is quite odd. What is work management? It's ultimately two random words put together. But for some reason, the industry has not been able to come up with something better. And I think that speaks to the brevity and how broad the use cases can be when it comes to what we define as work management. So to give you an idea of what that means is really the tool sets that employees use to get an idea from idea to done. What is the planning and the process and the teamwork required and the tool that can make that all significantly more efficient, faster to delivery, and just ultimately make that experience better. So tools that help an individual or an employee get something from idea to done, that is what we define as work management.
And would you say, because I know that, there's quite a few vendors that use the term now, would you say that work management as a concept is something that has evolved over the past few years?
Absolutely. I think that the evolution has gone from basic task management, let me have a list of to-do, to a true process, to automation, to best practices around agility. And I think this word agility will probably come up a couple of times. DevOps and software developers have been using agile best practices for many years. Business teams are starting to adopt the best of that in a less structured way, but that still drives better collaboration and a faster result ultimately. And so that's the evolution that has been happening over the last couple of years.
Yeah, and I think at Eficode, we've kind of seen that same trend. So certainly in my world, in the service management world, we've seen a lot more need from customers to provide that kind of idea to done behind the scenes, behind the service. And it's something that we've seen, a lot of growth, particularly since COVID, actually. We've seen a lot more growth in that area. I think it made a lot of organizations to kind of look inward a little bit about how they were doing things and thought, we can do this stuff better.
Yeah. Well, and I like that you bring up service management, because I think the definition of work management also needs to be defined in comparison to service management. So service management really being how customer support is done, how requests come in and then are responded to by an agent. Now, sometimes those requests are really simple and one person can collect the information, respond, and handle that with the requester. And that's the definition of service management. However, a lot of the times that request is big. The CEO requested that a new campaign is run and that there is a large executive adjustment, and that requires planning. That requires many people to be involved. And that's when work management is the tool of choice for those larger projects and bigger initiatives that need time and multiple people involved. So I think it's helpful to have that level set.
Definitely. And that's often, as a kind of service management professional, when we're doing implementations for a customer, often that's the first question is like, okay, we've got the customer side of things, but how do we do planned work? How do we run a project? It's like, aha.
The different. Yeah.
Exactly. So there's a few sort of sectors or types of service management that I just wanted to briefly talk about. So in Eficode, we've seen a large amount of growth recently in these different kind of business units adopting service management practices, what we call enterprise service management. But again, that's another confusing term and for another podcast. But particularly like legal teams, finance teams, my team, for example, has done more finance team service management solutions in this past year than we've ever done. And actually, a lot of the work on those was focused around work management. So the actual services part was pretty easy because it's just like processing emails, but the actual how do they structure their work was more complicated. So within Atlassian, how does Atlassian support these kind of different types of teams?
Yeah, good question. I think the way that we support can be really broad, and the idea is that we can do a deep dive into customers. However, that's not really the question here. The question is for best practices and an average, right? So I think that the commonalities that we see with customers in finance or legal or HR is depending on the maturity of that organization, they're either in one of two buckets. They use some of the basic tools like Excel, email, chat, right? And those tools aren't really built for planning and project management. They're missing a lot of key functionality. Or that organization has adopted many tools, and each team, maybe the finance team in the UK buys something, and the finance team in Los Angeles buys something, and the HR team in New York buys a different tool for their use case. And all of a sudden, we've got a large organization with many point solutions that are quite mature, but don't talk to each other. So those are the two common scenarios that we find. Both of them have their pain points that we try to help customers solve. In bucket number one, if the customer is using email, so much gets lost.
Yeah.
I spoke with a large bank in Germany. You would be surprised at how many millions of dollars are managed in an Excel file by the finance.
I work for a bank. I'm not surprised.
And that was okay, but what they were missing was auditability.
Yeah.
Who is doing what? What sort of tasks are required? Who is assigned? Approvals, right? All of these aspects are lost, and so many mistakes can happen in an Excel file, and it's very difficult to share and collaborate. So that there's, I think clear pain points on that side. And then on the other side, if you have all of these point solutions that don't communicate with each other, you just create more and more silos, and you're replicating a lot of work.
Agrees. Yeah. And I often joke actually with colleagues and customers that half the world is actually run by email and spreadsheets, and it's kind of true. And yet neither of them were designed for that purpose, either in providing a service or planning work. Spreadsheets were designed for calculating numbers.
Yes.
And email was used for communication, and neither of them serve either of those purposes really.
Yeah. And employees are going to find a way with what they have to get where they're going, unless there's some direction.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, one of the observations I would have with the Atlassian tools, particularly I'll talk about Jira Work Management just to start with, is that I found with teams that mainly use email and spreadsheets, that it's actually quite a friendly transition, because you've got that kind of list view, which kind of behaves a bit like a spreadsheet. And when you show that to people, they're like, oh yeah, I can live with that. I can get on with that. Yeah. And then obviously they get all the added benefit that you mentioned around actually having, the accountability and the approvals and everything else managed within the tool. But that's like a bit of a light bulb moment for a lot of customers. In terms of developing these products, is that something that Atlassian consciously thought about?
Yeah, 100%. So the user experience, and I don't know if people are familiar with the Atlassian flywheel model that really worked for Jira Software. And this is the model where our product was easy to use for software developers and was ultimately adopted because the product was so good and easy to access. And that was the success that Atlassian has been riding for the last 20 years and has created a $4 billion enterprise based on that model. Now that fit for software developers. Over the last 4 years, almost 5 years, we've been building the same mentality, but for business users. And you're exactly right. Jira Work Management, we thought, how do we make this as easily adoptable for any professional to onboard themselves, to start using it, to understand the value of it, and to start delivering faster and having a process within their key teams, and that they don't need university training. They don't need an engineering background and a college degree. They can just start to use it because it's similar to their entire life. And this involved lots of user evaluation, experiments, and consultation and improvement in the product over the last few years.
And I think that definitely bears fruit. Just to kind of give a couple of examples. So I said that my team have done quite a few work management implementations as part of a service management delivery, basically. So we're kind of covering both. And I mentioned that one of those finance teams I work with, they'd never seen any Atlassian products before, and they'd not seen any software development products before. But someone within the business had said to them, look, this is what we use in IT and with our software teams. And they kind of looked at it and thought, oh, yeah, I kind of like that kind of Kanban bull thing. And they were like, oh, how can we have this to support our service and get rid of email? Because that was really their main focus. And as I said, I did a brief demonstration of how work management worked, and they were like instantly, yeah, that's what we want. And then all it was then a case of doing is making sure that the emails coming in were processed through a service desk, et cetera, et cetera. So the other good example of that is actually one that did some time ago now, but it was actually a law firm. Now, I know nothing about the law or the complexity of the law, and to be honest with you, I didn't understand half of what they were telling me. They were basically a massive and worldwide law firm, and they were processing mergers and acquisitions. So as when they bring business together, and you can imagine there are literally tens of thousands of things that have to be done as part of that kind of project where you're bringing together, merging multiple business together, or sort of managing the different entities within that business and its assets and stuff. But I think the success, as you said, the usability of these products and the fact that people can pick them up quite quickly, because they were just doing everything with spreadsheets, just meant they picked it out really quickly. And to be honest with you, they run with it. I kind of showed them a few things and sort of let them get on with it. When I came back, they had built the most impressive work management solution I think I've ever seen, because they're smart, but they could do it, and they could do it easily.
No, I couldn't agree more. And example after example of customer impressing us with what they've created. I think some of the industries I've been most impressed with are airlines. Companies like Lufthansa and KLM Air France, and automotive. What Mercedes and Audi has done locally around building unique environments and unique processes is really creative. And the part that they see the highest results in productivity is around automation.
Yeah.
Right. Getting rid of those manual tasks. It also, not only does it save them time, but it also means less errors, less worry, right? Double click and continually impressed and looking forward to what our customer shows us next.
I'm always sometimes the creativity of the solutions they come up with, I'm always really impressed with it, because you think as a consultant, you think, oh, we come up with all the good ideas, but we don't.
No,
we often steal them from customers who come up with them. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, and sort of bring things to a close, really. Where do you see the future of work management? Now, obviously, there's a lot of talk about AI, and CES is going on as we're recording, and everything is AI. But alongside AI, where else do you see kind of innovation and change coming in the area of work management?
Yeah. So I would say two key changes. So one is around standardization towards a mature model. And what I mean by that is that instead of individual organizations or individual teams regionally or whatever that might mean, silos ultimately, are making their own choices and doing their own selection. And instead that large organizations are going to make a broad decision around a harmonized way of working. And I steal the term harmonized way of working from Spotify. They've had some blog posts and some context around why they've chosen to adopt work management for all employees, no matter the department, from each and every single employee within the organization. And that harmonized way of working and standardization is something that we're seeing more and more, and requests from companies with hundreds of thousands of employees thinking about how do we make this the standardized birthright of any employee that joins the organization. So that's one key direction and trend that I think is the future.
Yeah, I can see. What's the main business driver for that from those organizations? Is it like consistency of reporting, accountability? What's the...
Yeah. That is all true. Yes.
Yeah.
Visibility and being able to make these types of decisions from an executive level is
Right.
massively important.
Yeah.
Because you can now see what is going on in every single department in all those organizations. You can identify bottlenecks. You can identify challenges and opportunities. You can do better resource management, portfolio management, etc. But there's another side to that. It's also cost savings. If you've got point solutions all within your organization, you've got $100,000 here on Monday.com, and you've got $200,000 on Asana, and you've got another team that's using Excel. Well, that's free, but it's not really meeting expectations. And anyway, and the Okta reports the average enterprise has 130 to 200 applications deployed.
Yeah.
The costs just add up. So instead, going for scale and sort of economies of scale in selecting a single product that fits everyone is now the other driver.
Well, you've also got the added cost and complexity of trying to, if at all, integrate bits of those. You know, if you got, I mean, I've seen that. I've worked with Monday in the past as well with some customers, and you know, it's a fine product. But then once you start trying to stitch together these different products, you start to get those inefficiencies and things that don't quite work how they should, and it becomes kind of clumsy in the way that it's the solution, and complicated, and then people get frustrated. And I'm sure if you were to do like a time in motion on it, it would show you that you're losing, quite a bit of time and money just through that. So,
KLM gave us a nice quote around time saving. So after the implementation, they said that they saved days every week and weeks every year, and that's for individuals, right? So add that up based on the scale of their deployment. It's hundreds of thousands of hours, right? Anyway, that's the type of time savings that we want to be involved with customers if we can identify opportunities for change and improvement.
And let's talk about AI, because everyone expects you to talk about AI. But where do you see kind of AI, kind of Atlassian intelligence as well? If we're talking about the Atlassian platform, where do you see that fitting in and supporting work management?
Basically, it's gonna, I think, drive that usability aspect of planning and project management to the next level. In the current functionality of AI and Atlassian intelligence in the tool, it means you no longer need to do filters and no longer need to create complex queries or anything like that. You can use your own sentence to ask a question about work. Tell me all of the opportunities within HR that need to happen by this date. And now it filters and gives you that insight. All of a sudden, you can ask anything to the Jira platform and get results and see exactly what's going on within the organization. The more work that's being done, the higher the insight, right? And that usability is the current aspect. What is next, and what I don't have, I don't have Atlassian promise on what we're building, but the discussions, and the ideas, and the topics that are coming is how do we make artificial intelligence do manual work for us? That automation that we have today is only going to be enhanced by the capability of artificial intelligence to know what needs to happen in more complex use cases and implement that without our interference or our configuration. That's all going to get better over the coming quarters and coming years. I think it'll happen faster than we can.
Yeah. I think particularly with large language model AIs, I think people only just scratch the surface as to the kind of stuff you can do, So, one of the things I did recently, which, probably shouldn't do, is that I used Confluence as I had to write some haiku, some poetry, because you can, it's like, I'll just use Confluence to do that. So, there's stuff, that is constantly kind of evolving, and it's such a fast moving sector. So it's kind of exciting really where this stuff's going.
Yeah.
Right. I think we'll wrap things up there. So anything you would like to, plug, or where can people find out more information about some of the products that you guys have got?
Yeah, I think, of course, the website is a great spot to start, and you can see some insights into the products. However, our team would love to get involved. And I think an introduction with Eficode and the Adaptivist team, we've got specialists all around the world who are here dedicated for our customers. So if you've got questions, you have ideas, you want to know what the art of the possible could be for your organization, you think there's potential to do better, we're really excited to have that conversation. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Sierra Dasso. I always respond to direct messages and would love to speak to any customer about whatever project they're working on.
Awesome. Thank you. Right. And just a sort of brief call to action for myself. So if you've enjoyed this show, then please do share it with your friends and colleagues. So we're going to be doing these on a monthly basis throughout 2024, and we've got lots of guests and topics coming up. If you're viewing this on any social media platforms, then do like and subscribe and do all those other cool things. You can also leave us comments, particularly on the LinkedIn post, if you want to leave us comments with questions, or as Sierra said, you can reach out to both of us actually directly on LinkedIn, and you can find us on there. I'm Gary Blower. So all this to do really is thank my guest for joining me on this particular show, Sierra.
Yeah, thanks a ton, Gary. It was great to be here.
More than welcome. And hopefully you'll join us next time. We'll have another, on the service management show, we'll have another hot topic to discuss and another special guest.